Hi there, my name is Nariman, and I'm super excited to welcome you back to season 2 of Media Coffee. In this season, we'll continue speaking with journalists from leading media organizations globally to answer some of your questions on how to best communicate with the media and craft effective press releases. Media Coffee is presented to you by PR Newswire, a Cision company that leads the industry in press release distribution. Don't miss out. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our session. Thank you so much if you want to watch us on YouTube or listen to us on our podcast. In Cision's 14th annual Global State of the Media report, when asked what the next generation of journalists needs, concerns around AI and its use in journalism emerged as a common theme. So this is what we will be basically discussing in today's session: the future of AI in media and journalism, and how companies can use it to perhaps craft an interesting press release for journalists. I'm excited to have today Tom Allen, founder of AI Journal, and Gelu Sulugiuc, founder of PLX AI, and currently a director at Thomson Reuters. So my first question, please, if you can just unmute yourself and introduce yourself and talk us a little bit about the platform that you founded.
Yeah, of course. It's great to be with you both today and looking at these important topics. And yeah, I mean, we're a media platform that was started 3-4 years ago. I didn't really know AI was going to blow up into the scene it was. My background's engineering, so I was really learning from that angle of my background was marketing, and marketing in an engineering company is where I found my feet with AI and cloud computing and computer vision and all these kind of areas, and really drove me to create an open publication for the experts and the people who are in that every day. And obviously, as those trends have grown, our business has grown. For example, we've worked with Thomson Reuters and brands like that to really amplify what we're doing and the conversations we're having, and really grilling into more of the applications rather than a top level view. And yeah, it's exciting to see how worlds such as PR and everything from manufacturing to retail to MarTech is all changing, especially over the past 12 months, which have been quite a ride at the moment.
Thank you, Tom. Gelu, if you can also introduce yourself, please, and talk us a little bit about your platform.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So I run a department that automates equities news using technology from PLX AI, which was acquired by Thomson Reuters last year. So I was the founder and CEO of that company. And basically, we want to automate using machine learning and natural language processing all the journalistic content in the first few minutes of a news event happening in the corporate disclosure world. So maybe it could be earnings reports or guidance updates or M&A stories, things like that. So we use our technology to quickly create and send to customers the headline alerts that they need to do their job.
Great, thank you. So you've mentioned that PLX was acquired by Thomson Reuters. Can you tell us what does that mean? What kind of impact are you expecting in journalism or for other media outlets from that move?
Well, I mean, in the past, if we go back a few years, most financial news providers overwhelmingly gathered and then reported corporate news manually. So using dozens, maybe hundreds of journalists to monitor many potential sources for this type of information, and then notice that some news happened. And these sources could be perhaps Cision or PR Newswire, or maybe the SEC website, or maybe even a company website, a website of a company itself where they would make some news. So you needed to have all these people that all day, spent their entire day at the screen to try to monitor these sources. When they finally found some news, quickly manually figure out, how important is this, try to create some headlines and send that information to clients. And that was very inefficient and very slow, and also very error prone. So generally the information reached clients, and in this case, the clients are investors, financial analysts, wealth managers, people like that, who need to know information that is going to impact the price of their securities, of the assets that they are buying or selling or managing for their clients. And often what would happen would be, by the time journalists found out about this type of news and manually reported it and sent it to clients, it was too late. The stock price would go up or down, or so there was a big need in the industry for automation. And the initial attempts at automation that companies made in the early days had nothing to do with AI. It was very rudimentary, and it was very prone to failure. So the idea we had was to use AI to create some models and some extraction engines that would work for a wide variety of types of press releases and types of companies from different countries, rather than having rules that work only for one company and one press release. And so that's why it was a good solution for Thomson Reuters, because obviously they're a global news operation with Reuters News, and they need a solution to quickly gather and distribute to clients news from all over the world, not just from one particular very niche subject or company. So what we're trying to do is use our technology then to help their clients all over the world.
Thank you. So AI has become in the last few years, we've been hearing a lot about AI everywhere. Basically, it reached a point where it became like a buzzword. But Tom, in terms of, as a journalist that covers high tech and AI as well, how have you seen AI impact the news industry, like specifically in terms of like content generation and automation, for example?
Yeah, it's changed quite quickly. I mean, I was speaking at a PRCA's conference a few weeks ago, or just over a month ago, and it was interesting to see how many communications, marketers, PR people were using it for content generation, or I think the main point is creativity. I haven't got like, for me personally, I always think if you're not using it, it's something where I explained it yesterday. It was similar to the teachers in the UK in like 1988 that were going against calculators being used in schools for exams. And I think it's very similar to companies that don't want to adopt, whether it's a large language model like Anthropic or ChatGPT or Bard or whatever you might want to use. I think it's really important, because the amount of stuff you can do it, whether that's looking, and the things I have seen in particular is crafted press releases and crafted content generation, where, I mean, you're seeing it with Amazon. They put a limit on 3 books a day for content creators because there's just so much content being pushed out on a regular basis. I mean, I'll always go to it as thinking, use it as, at the moment, using it as a creativity tool for stories. And I mean, there's places to use like CB Insights and places that are really good for data intelligence still, regardless of ChatGPT. But I mean, a lot of ways is really helping them differentiate their kind of their stories and their headlines and what they're sending to us and what they're doing themselves. I think is really important. But I mean, we try and look at use cases more than the technology itself. Like, there's a brilliant overview that I encourage people to read. By the time people have listened to this, it'll be relatively backdated, but it's good to use, from Sam Lessin, who was one of the early people at Facebook. And it's a great look at where VCs and investment is going at the moment for companies off the back of the success of large language models, AI, and data analytics, and all these things that are exploding. It's really companies that are leveraging AI that still have an end use that are going to be the big FANG group are the ones that are just consuming any kind of technology provider that has it. And that comes full circle to the kind of different technologies that are going to be available to people, not that are available now, but God knows what will be available in 5 years. And I think people really need to get comfortable with just understanding, whether it's from something basic like keyword and topic identification and getting that storyboard going, which I've seen a fair bit of, and was quite encouraging to see people at the PR conference telling me that's what they're using it for, to PR agencies and marketing brands, and whether that's Weber Shandwick or a bigger group to look at what you want to use it for competitive analysis is really important. Like Edelman, I know they're doing a lot in that space, and it's important because you can understand your audience. It's like a book I read recently by Patrick Bet-David, and Mark Benioff's book is really good as well, Trailblazer, and it's kind of looking at how the kind of key people you need to be employing, regardless whether you're a PR marketing person, and that shift I'm actively seeing from the bigger marketing groups to employ heads of predictive analytics and heads of data intelligence, because it's not something that people are really looking to outsource anymore. They want to bring it in-house and maybe use a tool or provider or a vendor to fine-tune it. But it's brilliant just to see that from a basic level. Everyone's got their hands on it. They're trialing different stories. They're trialing what the reception rate would be. And I think it's only going to get better and better, whether that's from media coverage through to how to turn that into new business. Really endless opportunities.
And just in terms of as you mentioned, more and more companies, PR agencies are using AI. How do you maintain a balance between AI generated content, let's say, and human written content? Like, are there any guidelines that people need to follow? I think this is a question for both of you, like either one of you can answer that. So how do we maintain that balance, and are there any guidelines that we need to follow?
So I was just saying, I'd love to hear Gelu's answer after this, but I mean, from what Thomson Reuters are doing, and they're obviously producing really great content at the moment from their wider tech scene. But for me, really, I would always put it down to a decision-making process. So things where what your outcome is from the content, what your evaluation is, what are the consequences, and really grade it on that kind of angle. And the most important part is measurement and feedback in my view, of understanding how's that responded, how's that going, did it do what you wanted that content to push out. But I mean, that goes to a lot of things, but really measuring it is where I'd say to start, and focus on your outcome. Like anything, see all these vendors push out new products, new things, and they don't have an outcome. It's just to release a new product sometimes. But I'd love to know what Gelu thinks.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, obviously, from the point of view of a journalist, you want to be careful to say we're sending out these press releases that are AI generated. So we want to know from the point of view of a journalist that this has been vetted by someone and it's 100% truthful. And there's especially in the business journalism world, there's a huge penalty if you fall for a hoax. And there's been examples in the past where global media companies fell for hoaxes and published news that was actually not true, and it led to changes in stock prices. And then they were, they ended up having trouble with the regulators. So from a journalist point of view, you want to make sure that what you receive from companies has been double checked by a human and approved by a human. On the other hand, at the same time, I think there's definitely a place for AI from the PR side of things. Like you said, I mean, how do they know what message actually goes through? Obviously, each company has a message they would rather we focused on as a journalist when we cover their news event. So two things here, I guess. One, first of all, get the journalist to actually cover the news event. So measure, what type of news event or what type of press release is attracting interest, and then write more of those. And number two, on a news event like the kind that I usually deal with our technology, which is, business information, corporate disclosure information that is sort of regulatory mandated. They have to send these press releases, but still, even then, of course, they have to say what's the revenue, what's the profit, and so on. But then they have the freedom to give some color. The CEO will maybe put some quotes in there, talk about some aspects of the business. Are those quotes going to get picked up in the story, or are they going to get ignored? If the quote is just like, we are very satisfied with our results this quarter, I can bet 9% of the time that's not going to get picked up. Nobody will quote that. So I would think that the investor relations person or the media relations person who are writing these press releases and sending them through services like Cision should try to use AI to monitor all the places that their content is being used, and then see what we wrote, what was actually going through and ended up in front of the readers. Is there a way to, what we focused on, was that actually interesting for the journalists, or they just ignore it and then, adjust from there? I'm not sure how much of that is taking place, but if I were them, that's what I would focus on.
Since you've mentioned regulations, this question actually I've been thinking a lot about it a lot since the entire conversation about AI started. Any legal issues that could arise from AI or from the use of AI. So from your point of view, and this question is for you as well, Tom, so either of you could answer, do you think there is any, or have you seen, or do you predict, for example, any issues that could be related to the use of AI, like in terms of data privacy and transparency as well? Is there anything that you think PR professionals should be aware of and follow, basically, from legal point of view?
Well, from my point of view, and it's a good angle because there's just loads of different ways of how you need to be careful. Like, we're always, like, the amount of times, and I want to go back to that last point as well, because this is a key thing that I feel PR companies are maybe missing. And I mean, look, I don't know how the business model of a PR company is going to change over the next 5 years, or a communications company or a big marketing agency, but I can't really stress, at least from my point of view as a user, to focus on your key relationships with people as well, because a lot of them seem to be neglecting that. And the amount of times where, if it, as you were saying, Gelu, that if you don't know what we're right or what's important, or having that feedback loop, it's very hard to feed something to us. And I think it's important to understand what story is breaking at what point, and how to not just rely completely on AI, because I see templated press releases every single day, apart from Saturday and Sunday. It's very important for the importance of relationship building with people, to make sure what their stories do and how to understand what angle to take. But to your other point around the security part, this is very important, Nariman, because you need to understand what's the data you're sharing, and to Gelu's great point, you see it with X at the moment, the amount of scrutiny they're getting under, because community notes and things being posted that aren't relevant to what's happening in world events. And that happens with communication between, especially if you're looking at publicly traded companies, it can get very murky water. I don't have the experience that Gelu has. That's why I'd love to hear the point of view. But if I haven't got something as a source, or something that can really show where it is, if I'm looking at whether it's something as basic as a report or whatever, there's guidelines that really, and Milk and Honey are a great agency that are building their own framework around it. So they're a great PR agency that gave me an example of a guidebook that they're using. But I mean, if you're just relying totally on AI and thinking it's going to hit compliance and it's going to go through all these different things, it's just, I wish you best of luck, because it's not going to work. And especially when a media outlet as big as Thomson Reuters or a Bloomberg or a Financial Times picks it up, I mean, they just have as much compliance as a big KPMG or someone like that. And if, as Gelu said, if that gets out and it's not accurate and it's not proper, you can have God knows what kind of crisis on your hands. But Gelu, I'd love to know what you think.
Yeah, I think especially the bigger the company, the bigger publicly traded company as well. So if you're a big publicly traded company, you have to be always aware that there might be somebody out there trying to impersonate you and trying to get legitimate news organizations like us and others to publish news that is wrong in order to manipulate your stock price. So in the past, without AI, maybe that was a little bit harder, because somebody had to try to match the style of a press release, let's say, and everything else that goes around, to try to fool a journalist into thinking it was coming from the legitimate source. But now with AI, I can imagine that it's a lot easier to say, to use it for a nefarious purpose and try to say, let's copy these, this type of press release. Let's copy, make a hoax website that looks like it's the real one, and so on. and then spam all the biggest news organizations in the world and try and see if one of them falls for it, because if one of them falls for it, it's going to be enough to move the stock price, and the bad actors can profit from it. So, and I guess it's a two-way street. On the one hand, you have to be careful as a company. How can we try to prevent that? And on the other hand, as a news organization, you have to be aware that there's people out there who are trying to fool you into publishing news that's not true, and you have to have try to have some safeguards in place to prevent that. And it can be anything, not just business journalism, but also, as we've seen with misinformation in conflict zones around the world, right? Where there's images that you have to verify to make sure that they are correct and they're not from a video game, but it's actual combat footage, and all sorts of things like that you have to try to very fast. There's always a pressure of time. That's why the hoaxes succeed usually, because there's a pressure of time in the journalism world. You need to be first with the information. So at every level, people are trying to break the news first, and then there's this imbalance between trying to verify the information quickly, but also publishing it if it's true. So you're always having in the back of your head, what if this is true and I sat on it for too long? And that's when people sometimes make the mistake. So you have to, it will be very important in the future to have ways of quickly verifying information before publishing, and still serving the public by publishing truthful information fast.
It's actually interesting that you've mentioned verifying information and fake pictures, etc., because it's something that I see a lot going on X, for example, or other social media platforms, where, as you mentioned, there is this pressure of time where media outlets need to release information really quickly. So what would you think, I think it goes back again to something that you've both mentioned as well, the relations between PR professionals and journalists as well. So I guess my question is, what are the things as PR professionals that might make it easier for journalists to do their work? What could they do in terms of verifying the information, let's say, in terms of or providing the information? Are there any advice or anything that you're looking for from these professionals?
For me, I'd say the most important thing is having a trusted channel. So, if you always deliver information a certain way and only that way, don't have any surprises. So if I always know that you report through Cision, then I trust that channel. All of a sudden I receive an email that seems to come from your company with big information, and in the back of my head is, but they always report through Cision. Why am I getting all of a sudden an email? And I'll have alarm bell ringing. So that's one of the things I would really stress, that the providers of information and the corporations themselves should be very predictable how they release the information. We don't want to tell them what to write and how to write, but if they can be predictable how they do, which way they do it, then we know that this is the channel that they use, and that's a trusted channel.
I think that's very similar to what I'd say, and that goes back to my point I was trying to make earlier about having that communication, having that relationship with journalists and with reporters, especially from a PR and comms world, because I trust someone if they're constantly in communication with me, constantly understanding, and it can swing the other way as well. So Gelu, you made a great point, but look at the things like with Theranos and what happened with Wall Street Journal or Financial Times and Wirecard. There's examples where even though they have the intelligence and it came from a random source, that they had to go, fly out and go double check if they're a real person, which was the situation with Theranos, who said they had a test at one of the Walgreens stores. And it can take time on Wirecard, because especially if you're doing a breaking story like that on a very heavily funded company, there's going to be people saying, you're bullshitting, you're lying, it's not true, blah, 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 when it did turn out to be true in both cases, once people really started digging. That's what people such as Gelu and people such as journalists great media sites they really go double check and fact check, because although it might look a bit of a dodgy source, it could actually be a very, very factual source. But finding that line is very tricky. And I think PR and marketing, I think that's going to be more thing. There's going to be more and more hoaxes happen. You're seeing it already increase, where information is actually a video from 2 years ago, or trying to relate to a current world event. And I think as much as it can work in that way, also taking your time to do a story, especially if you're going to try and investigate something, as the case with Wirecard or Theranos, you can expect some backlash, and you can expect it to not necessarily go that way. So I only see it increasing. You're seeing celebrities getting their voices cloned, videos cloned, and that's going to lead to all sorts of problems that, if we as journalists are reporting on it, we've got to make sure it's legit. So it's a big part of it.
Yeah, and again, that's exactly, you're right, and that's where this pressure of time comes in. So with Wirecard and Theranos, you're right, the information came from an unusual source, but in a way, the journalist had the time to double check, because there was no time pressure. And it would be irresponsible to, all of a sudden write a story that, this company that has been supposedly operating normally for years, all of a sudden it's actually something completely different, right? So in that case, of course, you would check and go through different layers, and the major media organizations have well-established procedures on how to source and verify such a story. But where the danger is big is where a type of news or a type of information that normally would be reported quickly is being reproduced as a hoax, and that's where the journalists have to be very careful.
What are your predictions for the future of AI in journalism? How do you see the future? How do you envision the future?
I see it very similar to kind of what Gelu is saying, and how other industries are seeing it, right? Like I think the personal assistant side is such a big key thing. That's what's going to be the big enabler. You've got someone telling you what's happening and how you can do better reporting. As Gelu said, speak to your contacts more, do more of the fun stuff. I think that's really important. And from a business side, if obviously I own the AI Journal, so I'm always looking at how can I do better analysis? How can I hire the next right person? Or how can we add more value to the reader, to our customers, to those areas? And I think for me, it's really the data analysis and the predictive analytics that's really going to be a lot of fun. But really, if you're writing a long story and you've got to look at a lot of references, you've got a lot of calls to make to back the data, to back an investigative piece or an explosive piece, you really, having a chatbot that can kind of siphon through that and say, hey, by tomorrow when I start at 7 a.m. or 9 a.m. or whatever it is, or I'm traveling, I'm going to be up in the air and I'm going over to Singapore or I'm going to America or whatever, I want a compiled list of X, Y, Z. I mean, companies are starting to instill that within their own business frameworks, their own large language models, to essentially give you that speed and give you that knowledge. And I think that's really going to be beneficial, because it's almost people are, the content creators are the next wave of people. People are creating, look at what Mr. Beast is doing and all these people. So I think they're creating their own form of journalism for their own unique niche. And I think having some sort of chatbot or some sort of virtual assistant that really knows you, really understands you, and I think Copilot is going to be a big enabler of that, looking at the early releases and everything and the things. But I think you're just going to be able to do more of the fun stuff, more of the enjoyable writing, more of the stories you want. And I think actually you'll become more expertise, because to use Gelu's example, you can really lean into a story and think, shit, I didn't actually know that's a story that I could be leaning more into, put it through the analytics tool that your team use. Actually, that's got very high engagement rate. Bingo, you've got a very good story that's probably very unique as well. So there's a lot of great things going to be coming in the next year, let alone the next 5 years.
Yeah, I mean, the old way of doing things was several journalists operating one system, right? So you would have maybe 10 journalists being ready to look at the Cision feed in the morning and sort through all the company releases that are there. And then 10 other journalists have to look at the Globe Newswire feed, and 10 more at Business Wire, and a couple of more are looking at the web feeds and so on. Instead, you can have a journalist operating multiple systems now. So a journalist who is monitoring the output from that the AI has already created from the Cision feed, from the Globe feed, and from Business Wire all together. And then also maybe the web scraping that might be important for their job. And then some of his or her colleagues can already take it to the next level and already work on the updated stories of the top 3, 4, 5 stories of the day out of those 100 press releases that they received through Cision that morning. And that's the future. And I think the second thing that is going to have to happen more in media is journalists and the tech department traditionally have been working separately. So journalists are doing something, and they might say to the tech department, "Oh, we want this tool built. Can you come back in a year and give it to us when you're done to help us with our publishing?" It can't be like that anymore. It has to be that you are working together, because not that a journalist has to be a coder or a coder has to be a journalist, but they have to work together to solve these type of problems faster and improve their workflow and their tools so they can handle today's news flow, and also to take advantage of the AI opportunities that are becoming available.
Thank you so much, both. Just one last question. If there is any final recommendation or advice that you would like to share with our viewers, please feel free to go ahead. Tom.
I was waiting for Gelu to jump in, but I think, yes, to really do that, just lean in and start building frameworks when you're in PR agency, or really think about how you can deliver to a journalist a better story, because a lot of stories I'm reading at the moment, at least around, because obviously we focus purely on high tech and emerging tech, they can be very product focused. And I think, well, we're trying to look at how the end user can really innovate off that and really understand that. So I think, regardless of that, whatever your frame point is, even for publications that cover, retail, lifestyle, whatever it might be, fashion, I think it's important for people supplying information to journalists, not just, or to these media brands, not just the PR companies, to think about what's your AI strategy, really grill into it. What is it? What's our outcome of our business, and how can AI data get us there faster? Create some sort of framework, decision framework, and see what's out there to move it quicker, because you don't need a massive tech stack to do pretty amazing things. I mean, you can use ChatGPT for free. Obviously, if you want to use more important things, you can go to paid tools, and whether you want to visualize data, there's all sorts of platforms that are out there to help you or organize your data, whether that's a Snowflake or a data robot, whatever it might be. But to really look at your AI strategy, because I think a lot of people are hearing it and they're just not doing anything from a leadership level. And obviously, if you've got executives that have 3 years under their belt, either they're going to catch on to it and think, shit, I'm going to start my own business here and catch up with my now competitor. I would really encourage people to look at that drawing board. Think, what's the outcome? What's an AI strategy that can help us get us there quicker, that people are bought into? That's what I'd say.
Well, I don't want to give advice to our competitors, so we can stay ahead and remain the premier provider of financial information. But for the other side, for the PR professionals out there, and the ones who write the information to journalists, where the journalists are the audience, I would say, use as much AI-driven data as you can to figure out how can I improve the way I write my press releases to get the message across in a clear way, that it actually gets used by journalists. And then, as I said earlier, match the PR professional, the writer of these press releases with the technical people, with the people who know how AI works and how these things work, so that they can work together to improve their their product, and to improve their press releases, and to improve the quality of the message that they're getting out there. Because at the end of the day, they want their message to get across. And if they see that it's not being used, that journalists are not finding it interesting, yeah, they need to do something about it.
Again, thank you so much. This is the end of our conversation. I do really appreciate your time. And for our viewers, if you have any questions, please feel free to write a comment or send us an email, and follow us on our social media accounts as well to keep up to date with our news.